On the eve of Canada's first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, we leave you with one man's very personal journey. He's part of our CTV family, and today met a vital member of his own. In tonight's Indigenous Circle, we explore the genesis of Ben Miljure.
I just said, hello, how are you? My name is Ben, and I'm your son.
And she knew you.
Oh, she absolutely did know me. Yeah.
Did she know you were a reporter?
I showed her a picture of you and I, a screenshot from election night. That was important to me.
First time you've seen her since you were a toddler.
Lisa, I will carry forever in my heart the way her face lit up when I called her mom.
What did it feel like saying that word and looking at your mother?
It felt fulfilling. I felt whole.
As a journalist,
but the big factor here,
Ben Miljure's first obligation is to the truth.
Treated as a possible hate crime.
This was the moment he was forced to confront his own.
As people stop by here to reflect, some sing, some cry.
We are human. We are journalists, but we are also human, and the stories do touch us. But when we are live on air, we have to put that aside. And in that moment, I couldn't.
Young lives cruelly taken and then buried for decades.
215 unmarked graves at the former residential institution in Kamloops horrified this country. And for Ben, it pierced open what he'd kept hidden outside his inner circle.
My mother was considered a missing or murdered Indigenous woman for almost 2 decades.
And you covered those hearings, Truth and Reconciliation hearings.
It was then that I began to process things and understand the similarities between the stories that I was hearing and my own personal story. And that's when I began to think that maybe my mother had fallen into the same circumstances.
Tell me why you kept it a secret for so long that you were an Indigenous man.
It's not because there's any shame for me in having Indigenous heritage. The shame always came from not being able to talk about my family. My mother is a survivor of the 60s scoop, and then she and some of her siblings were taken from their families and placed into foster care, and it had profound impacts on her life.
You say your mother's life was difficult as a little girl. What was your life like as a little boy?
I did bounce around to a few foster homes. I was fortunate, though, that I did get some stability in my teenage years. Throughout high school, I was with the same foster family. There was very little effort made to help me reconnect with members of my mother's family.
How did you first connect your Indigenous family that you never knew?
It was through social media. A woman sent me a friend request, and I didn't know the name. And eventually, I clicked on it. I think it might have been a couple of years later. And I looked, and I saw that she was from Alert Bay, and that is my mother's home community. It turns out that that woman who connected with me on Facebook is my grandmother. I did get to meet one of my aunts. She testified about my mother at the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Inquiry, and she gave me an eagle feather that, the commissioners of the inquiry gave her an eagle feather in honor of her strength for sharing my mother's story, and she gave it to me.
It was the first step on a journey of understanding about himself.
It's been really profound for me. It's been a liberating experience to no longer feel like I have to carry this secret as some kind of burden. Now, as an adult and a proud Indigenous man with a voice, I want to use that to help other people find strength. It's never too late to explore where you come from. So don't be afraid to open that door. You might be really pleasantly surprised by what you find.